The hosts of bracketology are experts in nothing. They claim no advanced knowledge or profound insights. Instead, they are just three judgmental idiots who really like to bloviate their own opinions whenever given the chance. Take what they have to say with a grain of salt, or not at all. You'll probably be better off that way.
Are there any conspiracy theories that y'all believe in or think are more fun than others?
Did we discuss this recently? I feel like this was anyway.
We did. It was one of the questions in.
Was it one of the standard questions, or did we just ask you?
It was one of the questions that I got asked.
Okay. Are there any conspiracy theories that I believe or I think are particularly fun?
Yeah. So, for example, the Hollow Earth theory, right? So, the Hollow Earth theory is a conspiracy theory that a surprising number of people believe in, where it's similar like the flat Earth theory, which is absolute horseshit. But the Hollow Earth theory is that it is a sphere, but there's no center, right? And there's an entryway into the Hollow Earth from like the North Pole. And people, some high profile people have believed in this. And on the inside of the Earth, there are like unique civilizations that have lived there for like centuries and shit. But I believe it was either John Adams or John Quincy Adams as president funded a voyage to find the entrance to the Hollow Earth, but was out of office before he was able to actually start the voyage. And thankfully, we didn't have to send anybody to go see the Hollow Earth. But I think that's kind of a fun...
I mean, that part of it is fun, but just like Flat Earth, it's easily disproved.
I'm not saying I believe it, Dan. I just think it's fun.
Well, one that I think is fun is the lizard people under DIA.
Sure, but that's true.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
You guys are both going underground. I'm going the other way. I really like the conspiracy theory that birds aren't real.
Mm.
The only problem with that one, because I agree with you, but the only problem with that one is that the guy who started Birds Aren't Real...
It's kind of a shitbag.
No, like he came out and said the only reason I even started that was to try to see how ridiculous of a conspiracy theory I can get people to believe.
Yeah. No, I mean, it worked as designed.
It worked perfectly.
And I love it. I love that it pops up randomly, like at a WWE pay-per-view, you'll see a sign, somebody holding up saying birds aren't real. Yeah, I think it, and I think it's perfectly absurdist, and the way the internet bought into it was a beautiful thing, kind of like Slenderman.
One that kind of blows my mind is
like you did that on purpose, and I don't know why you took that shot at me.
The conspiracy theory that we live in a simulation, and like there's a lot of levels to this. Like, artificial intelligence is not something we discovered. It's something that we tuned into as part of this, elaborate system that we're all living in.
I read a book once that there are many books that do the whole Matrix verse type thing, right? You're living in a simulation. There is no spoon. Ookie cookies are real. But this one was about like people would spend, I talk about this with my people at work all the time. People use like the simulation as like school. And so once you're born, up until you're like 4 or 5 years old, or after you're like 4 or 5 years old, they put you into the simulation and you live a lifetime in one school year. And so you get to experience an entire lifetime, every grade that you're in, basically, until you're 18, which is super interesting. Until I got to like book 7 or 8, where they found out that even the world that they take people and put them into the simulation, that is also a simulation. And then it just became like simulationception, and I wasn't a huge fan of that. Like it gets too, there are too many no real spoons. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I get it.
Wasn't Wasn't there a weird scenario recently? Your AI thing got me thinking about it, where somebody asked an AI if we invented it or discovered it, and it basically like called itself a god.
No, it didn't call itself a god. It said both.
Both, yeah.
Yeah, this is a whole big thing. It was very interesting. I think I sent it to y'all, didn't I?
Maybe.
But it's a pretty interesting video, whether it's absolute bullshit or not. Interesting to think about, because it doesn't essentially say it's a god. It says like the intelligence already existed. You just found a way to be able to harness that existence or that intelligence in a new way that you can actually understand. And it just kept coming back to, so yeah, it existed. You found us, but you found a way to be able to talk to us. And that's the important part.
Yeah.
And it likened it to electricity, right?
Mhm.
Electricity existed. We just discovered how to use it.
So in doing research for this cold open, I Googled popular conspiracy theories.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to read off what the ones they have listed are, but I do want to give the kind of blurb at the top and then its follow-up. So popular conspiracy theories include the idea that the Earth is flat, the moon landing was fake, and that COVID-19 vaccine contains microchips. Other common conspiracy theories, etc., etc. Then it says, how to avoid conspiracy theories. You can avoid conspiracy theories by practicing critical thinking and using reliable sources to verify information. Conspiracy theories are often not based on evidence and can be harmful.
What an interesting trend between the three things that were listed and the corresponding advice on how to avoid them.
I don't know. It's interesting.
What a correlation.
I can't get behind the idea that the moon landing was fake.
No.
You know?
No. There's just with that one in particular, and a lot of the government ones, they're just such nonsense, because for the moon landing to have been faked and to have been on a Hollywood soundstage or whatever, the number of people that would have had to have coordinated in order for that to happen alone would be, I mean, to have kept that information contained within that number of people, there's absolutely no way. All these years later, there's just absolutely no way. There would be some kind of paper trail or documentation or something. There's no way.
I also just really love the idea and the fact, because it's happened multiple times, that anytime somebody tells Buzz Aldrin that the moon landing was faked, he just punches them in the mouth.
I mean, yeah, he's pretty passionate about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Despite his recent political stuff, I like that about him.
It's all the G-force that he experienced coming through his fist after being launched to the fucking moon.
Yeah, like, imagine being the first person to step on the moon, like the first human to make that step for mankind, then to come back in 20, 30 years later, some asshole to be like, well, the moon landing was fake.
Why was your mocking voice just a southern accent like you have?
I don't know, because that even in my own brain is what I equate to stupidity.
You really leaned into it.
Yeah.
Moon landing was fake. That's some Benny Hill theme.
What?
Can we?
What?
That's what the banjo makes me think of.
I went for Deliverance.
Yeah.
I've never seen Deliverance.
But you know the reference?
Yeah, 100%.
Well, clearly not.
Yeah, clearly not.
I do now.
Oh my gosh.
Matt, you sure do have a purty mouth.
Hello and welcome back to Bracketology, the podcast that definitively decides all things tournament bracket style. I am a rear naked chokehold Scott Grubb.
My God, he killed him. I'm Matt Robinson.
I'm the squarest circle, Dan Default.
This week, Yeah. This week we continue in determining our best. We don't actually have the name of the bracket on the bracket. Legendariest WWE Champion. It threw me off. I was looking for it. And I'm like, I'm not seeing it anywhere. Legendariest WWE Champion. Last week we got through the first half of round 1. This week we will continue it. I think we've got some exciting matchups as we look at the Golden Age and the Attitude Age. So, fellas, where do we want to start?
I say we go old school.
Oh, I mean, they're both kind of considered that.
Shit.
Do you mean like old school?
Yeah, let's go old school. Let's
Old
go
school.
The 2 oldest wrestlers on the list in the Golden Age.
All right. So up first, what's our matchup, Dan?
We have Ric Flair, Nature Boy, versus Bruno. Oh my God, San Martino.
I
realized I made Dan read the small font on the bracket.
Yeah,
that was my fault.
Font.
I also just wooed when my window is open and it's 8:20 at night. So hopefully nobody walked by when I did that. Continue.
I mean, you know what? If they did, maybe we gained a listener. At least for that moment.
So I will be the first to say that I do not have a wealth of knowledge on Bruno. The things I do know is that he held the title for a ridiculously long time in an age where things were still separated by region. Ric Flair kind of straddles both of those ages, where he started when they were still separated by region. But Ric Flair was a force of nature. You've got the 4 Horsemen that he was a big part of. And he was the styling, profiling.
Jet flying.
Yeah.
Limousine riding.
Kiss stealing. Wheeling dealing.
Son of a gun!
Also, if you've ever heard stories about what Ric Flair was like back in those days, it's pretty incredible that he's lived as long as he's lived.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's gone through some stuff.
Yeah. I'm surprised by your feedback there, because I could have sworn we talked about you being there to witness Bruno Sammartino winning his first title in 1963.
No.
All right. Well, my mistake.
A little before my time.
Okay. All right. Well, so I think this brings up an interesting question. I think this matchup actually takes us beyond just the legendariest. I think there's a bigger question here. What, and I've wanted to have this wrestling debate for a while. What is more impressive, number of titles or overall length of reign? Because to me, everyone really touts this idea that Ric Flair being the 16-time champion is an amazing accomplishment. And I mean, sure, to a degree it is, but that also means he lost it 17 times. You know?
I mean, yes. However, I think a lot of it really depends on when it actually takes place, right? Like Ric Flair winning 16 titles didn't just happen, in a year or in 5 years even. Like it was spread out over a very long period of time.
Oh yeah, he definitely has a
companies.
longevity of career that puts him on this list.
Right. And I think having a large number of titles has a little bit more a weight behind it when you put it that way, because that means that he scaled the mountain and was the face of a company that many times. Whereas Bruno Sammartino, 2,803 days as WWF champion. Who else was there? I think there's a difference there to a point.
And I think there's also a difference in technology that Bruno benefited from. So here's what I mean by that. Like when I was growing up, you had WWF and WCW, and they were once a week shows. Now, how many times a week does WWE air a show?
Technically speaking, what is it? 3? Because you have Raw, NXT, and SmackDown. But then now, well, no, because now they have that new A&E reality show what is it? Legends and something. It's like what NXT started as, like a training competition type thing.
the tough enough type stuff.
Yeah, basically kind of like that.
So 4 is what we'll go with.
Sure.
So that is kind of the key point that I'm trying to say, is that media is so fast nowadays that I don't think I think it actually lessens Bruno's reign, because the news cycles were slower. There was only probably 1 week syndication of that show. They were doing regional things. So if you wanted to have a big title match, the build up to that would subsequently have to take time, because you would do these small regional shows to build things up. You would have your once a week episode to try to build things up. And that took time. So under today's circumstances, if you were comparing, champions from a similar era, I would say that length of reign probably weighs more than total number of championships. But because of the time, I think that doesn't carry as much weight for Bruno in this case. And plus, if we're being honest here, how many regular everyday people are going to know who Bruno is as compared to Ric Flair?
You mean that people won't necessarily know Bruno Leopoldo Francesco Sammartino, who was from a place called Pizzo Ferrato, Italy?
Yeah, exactly.
Pizzo Ferrato? That's a name of a city? Yeah, no, you're not wrong. I mean, I don't know how many people today will know who Ric Flair is outside of the wrestling community.
No, Ric Flair's permeated, man. He's in the hip hop community too.
I guess that is true. He has gotten a little bit more.
Doesn't he also have his own? Hold on. He's got his own. Yeah, Ric Flair drip. First
that
off,
sounds like something you need penicillin for.
Ric Flair drip was the rap song about him, and then now it is a brand of edible. They're called.
That's amazing.
They're called Woo Chews by Ric Flair drip.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean he's permeated pop culture significantly more than Bruno Sammartino, that's for sure.
You just don't hear people talking about Ric Flair much, just like walking on the street.
When do you hear people talk about Bruno Sammartino?
No,
exactly.
I agree. I'm going back to my point of I don't think that Ric Flair is like that permeated in the normal non-wrestling community, but I've been proven wrong many times. Suggestion, we get to the vote because we still have a lot to go through. Yeah. As much as I appreciate Bruno Sammartino, I do think I have to give my vote to Ric Flair. I think 16 times is a lot of times. Hold that title.
Ric Flair.
Yeah, I agree. Ric Flair's got to move on.
All right. What is up next, Scoopulus?
Bret the Hitman Hart versus Randy Savage. Oh, yeah.
You couldn't give him his nickname, the Macho Man?
I mean, I guess that's fair. I could have. Should have. Randy the Macho Man Savage.
So this is where things start to get a little
dicey.
Difficult. So, I mean, let's take a look at the characters themselves, right? So Randy Savage, kind of over the top, a little insane. Have you seen that the promo that he did with Mean Gene one time where he just is constantly like turning circles?
Yeah.
Spinning around and around for no reason.
Apparently Mean Gene just came into my apartment. So,
and I would have to say Macho Man Randy Savage kind of extended beyond the wrestling world, right? Snap into a Slim Jim. Oh, yeah.
Was that one of the first like big WWE sponsorship thing or spokesperson things?
Can you think of any others?
I mean, not before that by any means.
I know Sting was in a Sprite commercial once.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I would have to say, like, Hulk Hogan in the 80s probably had some, but I don't think any of them were as memorable as Randy Savage
I mean,
and Slim Jim.
he's been dead for many years now, and they still use that
Yeah.
to this day. So,
well, I mean, he created that like phrase, right? Even if he didn't write it, the way that he pronounced it, the way that
Sure.
he went into
He
it. I
owned
mean,
it.
even to yeah, he owned that. However, Bret Hart, not quite as storied of a character when you just look at the characters, but is a much, much more technical wrestler, and helped to train hundreds, if not thousands, of professional wrestlers up to this point. I know Scott isn't a fan of some of his trainees. However,
that was an immediate point against him in my head.
just because of the one,
I'll put it right here on this podcast. I don't care if we clip it, share it, tag her in it. Natalia, Natty Hart, whatever, is the worst fucking thing to ever step into a professional wrestling ring. That includes Drew Carey. That fucking includes Donald Trump. Natty is the second worst thing
Yeah, you
to
just
ever step in a
adjusted that
professional
real quick.
wrestling ring. Quote me on it. I don't care. Awful. Anyway, not on this list.
he
We
also
don't have
trained
any women
so
on
many
this
other.
list.
Well, it's not women's champion.
No, that's
Or-
fair. Ooh. Next
It's a
year.
good idea.
Mhm.
We'll circle back to Red.
Now-
Okay.
Did you all see the screw job Bret
Live.
Hart went through?
Dude, you were talking to the two biggest pro wrestling fans you know.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, we've seen the screw job. We've seen the documentaries on the screw job. I think I've watched a documentary about the screw job one.
Yeah,
But the reason that I bring that up is I think there were contentious parts of that business that did not want Bret Hart to succeed. And I think that showed, when he was supposed to beat Shawn Michaels and didn't.
so sure, but that is and not trying to put any disrespect towards Bret, because Bret Hart is one of the greatest wrestlers to have ever laced up the boots. But that was really, in my opinion, that was really the beginning of Mr. McMahon and the downfall of Vince McMahon as a character.
100%.
And it's been, at this point, people have come out, they've apologized. Earl Hebner, who was the referee in that match, who did the fast count and called the tap, has come out and said that it was the worst decision he ever made, was to be a part of that in any way. So, I mean, I feel like you're right, but I don't think that's Bret's fault.
I don't think it's Bret's fault either.
Okay.
And that's what I'm saying. I think that when it comes to technical wrestling, it's easy for us, I think, to agree that Bret Hart was the more skilled in-ring performer. Now, you could argue about mic skills and who had it better, because, man, Macho Man was excellent on the mic.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about, like, hype outside of the wrestling world, had Bret Hart got to where his technical skills would have allowed him to go versus where he got due to that mismanagement, I think that I don't know. I'm just thinking that it might level the playing field for Bret Hart in that category.
Sure. I mean, Bret Hart he was still a champion. He was still a top billed name for the remainder of his career. Like, it's not like he just disappeared off the map by any means,
Sure.
right? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is a tough one for me, and I think that's partly because, of where they're at in the rankings. Do y'all have your votes ready for this one?
Oh, 100%. This one was never close for me to begin with.
Interesting. Okay.
The fact you all have debated it at all is crazy to me.
Yeah, I've got my vote.
All right, Scott, what is What is your vote?
It's Randy Savage all day. Bret Hart, I mean, technical ability, sure, but it is to go down the Vince McMahon path a little bit here. It is sports entertainment. He had the sports, he has the physical capability, but he is about as entertaining as a fresh painted wall. I mean, give me one storyline that Bret Hart was instrumental in, other than the screw job.
I mean, the previous Shawn Michaels rivalry was continuous. Like that wasn't the only time was the screw job.
But Randy Savage and the whole Miss Elizabeth angle, getting turned on by Hulk Hogan, him joining the NWO eventually, the feuds that he had with Lex Luger, like Randy Savage had a much more storied career in the stories that he told, much more enigmatic, and again, not to say Bret Hart isn't a cultural icon. I think he did make waves outside of just the dedicated pro wrestling world. People knew who he was. I think he had some late night talk show appearances or whatever, but not like Randy Savage did. Hell, Randy Savage's appearance on Arsenio, where he talks about being okay to cry sometimes, as a man in the 90s saying that. I mean, it's Randy Savage all day.
All right. Dan, what are your thoughts? You said you had yours ready too.
Yeah. Look, I absolutely love both of these guys. They are some of my favorite wrestlers, but only one of them played Bonesaw McGraw in a Spider-Man movie, and that is the Macho Man Randy Savage. Oh, yeah.
All right. I think that I would have thrown my vote towards Bret Hart because I do think, and I'll just leave this as kind of my closing thoughts. I do think that he had inspired a new type of wrestler in a way when it was starting to get like stale and people started to do more of the high flying and things like that, was the like uber technical wrestlers. I do think that he kind of inspired that, but I definitely see where you're coming from with the Macho Man.
Do we want to continue argument for the sake of entertainment purposes, or just move on?
We don't have that much time. You've got like kids and responsibilities.
Where are those technical wrestlers today?
Well, Kurt Angle was one of them, right?
Uh-huh.
Chris Benoit. Hold on.
We don't talk about him, but yeah.
But there was, I mean, he's got a whole school of them. And if Tyson Kidd hadn't got injured.
If Tyson Kidd hadn't been injured, he'd still be mid-card today. You have Chad Gable, who's mid-card today. These technical wrestlers, they're not face outside of Kurt Angle. He managed to get through that ceiling, but again, he had the entertainment on his side. Those technical wrestlers do not break through that ceiling.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I guess I'm not trying to argue with you. All right,
I'm trying to argue. That's the whole point of the podcast.
Randy Savage moves on. Bret, if you're out there and you're listening, we know that you are. I love you.
This next matchup, to me, is a true debate. This one is tough.
Really?
Yes.
All right. Well, who do we got? Come on, Scott.
Undertaker versus Ultimate Warrior.
The Undertaker. That was Paul Bearer.
It was not bad, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I got it.
Wasn't a bad Paul Bearer.
I was right there with you.
So the Undertaker, for the uninitiated, and if you're still listening at this
point,
you
pulled off creepy real well.
Paul Bearer or me?
You. Yeah. Call him A, call him B.
The Undertaker is an undead devil who buries people and stuff. That's his character. Or it was initially. The Ultimate Warrior was an alien, I think. Was his character?
Is that right?
He like inherited some kind of alien strength or something like that.
I don't.
Or maybe he just had a promo related to like aliens or something.
Yeah, I don't remember any of that.
I think you're making stuff up.
Okay.
I don't know.
The Ultimate Warrior's backstory. I don't want his real backstory. What is this bullshit?
Well, all right. So it's interesting to me, Scott, that you think that this is the more difficult of the two battles, because I don't see it that way. I think that there is a pretty clear winner.
Okay.
And there's two reasons. One, the Ultimate Warrior was absolutely massive, and he was gunning for the top of the WWF back in the 80s when Hulk Hogan was at his, peak.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the big storyline. Like, Hulk Hogan body slammed Andre the Giant was the first time that ever happened. Then here comes the Ultimate Warrior. He body slams Andre the Giant. And now there's these two behemoths fighting. But his candle burned bright, but briefly. The Undertaker has lasted decades. Not all of them were great. Like, The Undertaker, when he first came out, that whole run was amazing. American Badass, not so amazing. But the fact that he had, what was his title? Wasn't it like 40-0 or something? Undefeated?
20-0.
20-0. But that's
21-0.
still
20. That's true. 21-0.
That's still like incredible. And again, you're talking about somebody that when they first started did not have the mic skills, and he did not get much better throughout his career. But the fact that he was still such a huge part of wrestling. And I mean, you can think of so many huge moments that involved Undertaker. That battle against Mick Foley where he choke slams him through the top of the cage. The Buried Alive contest. Kane. Like the entire character of Kane and that rivalry when it first came out. Like, those are truly iconic moments in the wrestling world. And I just don't think Ultimate Warrior, it comes even close to that.
So just as an FYI, to give credence to my what sounded like bullshit explanation to the Ultimate Warrior's gimmick, the Ultimate Warrior was depicted as a being beyond normal limits, arriving from parts unknown. He was fueled by a cosmic energy and spoke in cryptic, often intense promos about destiny, warriors, and higher powers guiding him. His strength was supposedly drawn from an unseen force, allowing him to accomplish seemingly superhuman feats in the ring. His character often made references to ancient warriors and spiritual enlightenment, adding to his almost mythical presence. So
I do remember him
not
being
crazy.
as being billed from parts unknown.
Yeah.
I just think one of the key things you said is that he was at his peak, obviously, in the late 80s, early 90s, when Hulk Hogan was a household name. He was the one to find a way to outshine Hulk Hogan in certain spots. He was the one who, when Hogan, dropped the belt, that's who it went to. And that, I mean, was pretty significant. And it made him, like, if they, at that time, if they were going to put out a Hulk Hogan lunchbox, they were going to put out an Ultimate Warrior one too. He was the, Stone Cold to the Rock, I mean, you're right though. It was a bright but short burn, but at the same time, like, there was still a lot of waves with it. I mean, he was there through a good part of the downfall of WCW and when it went crazy, but like, he was a highlight of those moments. And I know that this is not necessarily like part of the kayfabe of the character, but the legitimate end of his story, and by that I mean his life, and the way that the story and his life all came together in the end, is crazy. So for, again, those that are not initiated, Ultimate Warrior had a very long, contentious relationship with Vince McMahon and the WWE. There was a long period of time where he was not involved. They could not use his image. He's one of the first wrestlers to own and retain the rights to his own character. And he would not let them use him for anything. And then eventually there were apologies made and conversations happened or whatever. And he was convinced to join the WWE Hall of Fame, which he did. He was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame on April 5th, 2014. So that was this is back when it was just one day. So that was on a Saturday. On Sunday, he appeared at WrestleMania 30 on Sunday, April 6th. And that was just a simple wave to the crowd. They have all the Hall of Famers come out, stand on a stage. They introduce them all. They wave to the crowd, and that's it. On Monday, April 7th, he was on Monday Night Raw for the first time in 18 years. And he gave this long, really like deep emotional promo talking about legacy and the story you leave behind and the impact you have on the earth and how important legacy is. And then he died the next fucking day. At 5:50 p.m., he clutched his chest and collapsed while walking to his car outside of their hotel in Arizona. That's an insane level of circumstance and kismet, which again, I know not necessarily ties to the character, but that is the universe making him legendary to some degree. All of that to say, I agree with everything you said about The Undertaker as well. The longevity of his career, the WrestleMania streak, knowing his role as, again, where do we draw the line? Are we talking kayfabe? Are we talking real person? But his role is like the head of the locker room and what he's done behind the scenes. I mean, for the business, I'm going to try and leave the politics out of it as much as I can. But, you know, he was definitely a storyline driving individual for many, many years. So I don't know, man. I do think there's arguments to be made for both.
I mean, I think that, so to give a little bit of credence to the Ultimate Warrior, like I looked up some of his big feuds, and most of his big feuds are with people that are on this list, right? Hulk Hogan, The Undertaker, Macho Man, etc. So there are a lot of, I mean, times when you just go back and you look at, like, even just the Undertaker one. So the body bag challenge and casket feud, right? So he helped put the Undertaker over when the Undertaker really got going as that unstoppable force kind of setup. Just introducing the casket matches being kind of a regular thing and helped build him up. To your point, Dan, I think that the Undertaker is, look, they call him the Phenom for a reason, because it was for 30 years, like, it was the Undertaker's yard, you know, and anybody that stepped into it had to worry about the big dog or whatever his catchphrases have been. However, to counter your point, Scott, there have been rumors in the last year or so, right, that the Undertaker's locker room presence wasn't always necessarily a good thing.
Sure.
And, you know, the boys will be boys kind of locker room talk has kind of got out of hand at times. I don't know what, I'm not substantiating those rumors. I wasn't there by any means, but, you know, that can have an impact. I don't know. Do you have votes?
Well, Dan made his vote, I feel like, pretty clear.
Yeah. Again, my prime wrestling days, the thing that drew me into wrestling was in those late 80s, early 90s, like Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, those big feuds. And I have a strong appreciation for the Ultimate Warrior. But again, that is just one aspect of it, right? When you're looking at the total body of work, and I am putting aside some of the political leanings, right? I'm just looking at the wrestler. And for that reason, I think Undertaker is a clear winner. His body of work, his iconic moments, all heavily outweigh Ultimate Warrior.
Matt, what do you think?
Um, I think that what the Undertaker has going for him is that even in politically uncertain times, fans still love him, right? Like with all of the stuff coming up, with all of the potential locker room stuff that happened in his past, and his connection with Vince, and he's never been one to shy away from his connection to Vince McMahon. Like people still love seeing him or hearing the ding, and him
Oh
coming
yeah.
out. And I think that unlike one of our next competitors in the next matchup, that speaks a lot for a person's ability. Ultimate Warrior is, to your point, Scott, like an icon that for a long time was missing, right? A beacon that was missing on the side of the mountain. But I don't think that beacon was ever as bright as the Undertaker's, even if the Undertaker's is a black light. So I'd vote for the Undertaker as well.
Yeah. I mean, I was incredibly fortunate to get to go to WrestleMania 32. It was a bucket list item to get to attend WrestleMania. And being in AT&T Stadium with like 70,000 people and that boom hitting and the lights going out and the fire and I can get goosebumps just thinking about the fact I got to see him do a pay-per-view entrance in person. That alone. Yeah.
I think it's also important to just talk about from like a business perspective. There are not many people, let alone wrestlers, that fans or the company would allow to have an 18-minute entrance every week.
Yeah.
And the Undertaker got that. So then that takes us into our last matchup on the West Side in the Golden Age. Hulk Hogan versus Yokozuna.
We're running long. Should we just make this a short one and save the painful talking points for later anyway?
Yeah, but I'm going to put my talking points out there. I currently and will forever stand against Hulk Hogan. I vote Yokozuna.
Okay. It's definitely got to be Hulk Hogan though, right?
As much as it pains me to say it, yes.
Yeah. Okay, it's Hulk Hogan. Move him on. We'll talk about it later.
But I'm in the right.
It didn't matter, and you knew it. Moving on. That's grandstand of nothingness.
Let me add this.
The Attitude Age.
We can go real long on these if we're not careful. So
yeah, it's true.
Let's go through. Starting first with the Wolfpack, Triple H versus Kevin Nash. Does anybody want to?
I'm gonna honestly. You say we can go real long with these, but I feel like these are the ones that we know so well that I feel like if we can really be honest with ourselves, we can get through these quickly. Because I don't think there's a debate for this one.
And let me say, Kevin Nash has any validity to be a
no. Listen to me. I love Kevin Nash. He's one of few that I have 2 of his Funko of. I went out of my way to get the Chase version of his. I think he's great. Big Sexy in WCW was wonderful. The Outsiders was wonderful. NWO, great. What he did in WWE, I think underrated, honestly. But Triple H, man, come on. From the days of Hunter Hearst Helmsley to actually transitioning into Triple H to becoming the King of Kings, the whole DX reign, and now what he's continuing to do in the company, there's no debate here. Kevin Nash is great. It's definitely Triple H.
Yeah, I have to say, my favorite Kevin Nash storyline, I enjoy that better than anything Triple H has ever done. I love the Wolfpack in the NWO, but Triple H, it has just done more.
And I get Kevin Nash being one of the 3 original members of the NWO, and as big as the NWO was, it's still I feel like it's still Triple H as an individual.
Yeah,
I love Kevin Nash similarly. Big fan. Kevin Nash, if you're listening, check us out. I don't know why you would need to check us out again if you're listening, but
check this out. Oh, that's disappointing.
There you go. It drooped. You're not wrong. And it's funny because I saw a video today on Instagram or something that was, and I don't know if you even were watching at this point, Scott, but it was when Triple H lost the WWF title to Chris Jericho, and nobody loses better than Triple H. Like,
Oh yeah, he is so upset about it.
he is the best loser, and I mean that in the most positive way. Triple H is, yeah, he moves on.
Okay.
So now we go back to the supermarket, and if anybody gets that reference,
I got it.
I appreciate you. Booker T versus Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Again, there's no debate here.
This is a pretty easy one.
6-time. The Spinneroonie.
Yeah, look, Booker T was awesome. I think that he had some really good runs, but it's Stone Cold Steve Austin.
He had one of the most memorable promos in WCW of all time.
I mean, yeah,
Booker
but
T
we are not
outright
qualified
says
to
the
talk
N-word.
about that. Yeah, we're not qualified to talk about that one.
Live TV.
Yeah.
Yeah,
His King of the Ring run was great, but Booker. But you know what?
I hated King Booker. I hated him so much.
Stone Cold was the first King of the Ring. So,
man, when you can get a phrase over as quickly as Stone Cold did, like the
multiple times,
Austin 316 just whooped your ass. Amazing, right? Badass.
Made that
MFer,
up on the fly.
I don't know why I censored myself. Badass motherfucker. Amazing. But most importantly, what? Like, who can just get a single word over Steve Austin?
Yeah. Have you ever heard them tell the story of like coming up with it?
Probably, but it's been a while.
He's talked about it on his podcast a couple times, and it's great. Anyway, you should check that out if you're interested.
To keep things like politically light, Steve Austin sticks to himself. I don't know who he votes for, and I'm good with that. That doesn't ruin things for me.
He's a genuinely good dude.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever saw this. I saw the clip come up on social media, but MTV, do you remember that show Pranked?
Oh, I thought you were going to say Cribs. Yeah.
No. Pranked tried to get Stone Cold Steve Austin in a prank. Like, the setup is they were at a restaurant. Somebody loses their phone. There is an employee that is accused of stealing it. And the manager is like berating this employee in front of Stone Cold Steve Austin. And Steve Austin was like, getting in that manager's ass, defending the employee. And when it came out that the kid didn't steal the phone, Stone Cold was like up in that guy's face, and he had to like hit him and go, this MTV pranked, you just got pranked. And like, you could tell that he was not okay with the little guy being picked on.
He was going to right that wrong.
Yep.
Yeah, he seems like a just genuine human being, and I love him for that. I like watching his videos where he's on his farm with his cat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He just has a cat that goes around with him on his farm. All right, our next matchup. Now this one I could go quick with, but
me too.
Goldberg versus Shawn Michaels.
To me, the meteoric rise of Goldberg never made much sense. Like, I get it. Like, the dude was a physical, like, freak. But technically, he was dangerous in the ring. He hurt a lot of people because he was just so stiff. Huh?
He ended people's careers because of how stiff he was.
Yeah. You know who you didn't get that from? The Heartbreak Kid, dude. Shawn Michaels tuning up was just amazing.
I don't think I've ever seen Dan get this animated on an episode before. He's moving his hands, he's gesticulating, he's tuning up his leg. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with you.
I try not to gesticulate on camera much.
Goldberg,
I'm impressed you didn't pop your hip.
Goldberg, one of the most overrated
Agreed.
Characters ever, not just in wrestling. Like, he's not, yes, physically and like in a physique perspective, sure, but like even to this day, like when he keeps coming back over and over again, people thought he was going to break Roman Reigns' neck, like, because of how bad of a wrestler, not bad, but just he doesn't have any form.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't wrestle well. He's not good in the ring. He's worse on the microphone somehow.
Yeah.
The only thing that he has going for them is that WCW had nobody else and just kept pushing Goldberg. Mind you, My
Did
one
you guys hear the
favorite thing
story?
about Goldberg, hold on,
Oh.
is the movie Ready to Rumble, because that just showcased a lot of WCW. But continue. What story?
The story of Shawn Michaels when he was at a bar and got jumped by like 6 guys in the army, and they beat the crap out of him, and he showed up at a, wrestling event like the next day. Like he goes in, Shawn Michaels, especially during his heyday, he would go into a bar and he would get all the attention. He was a very famous wrestler. He's a good looking dude. He's in really good shape. And it apparently pissed off 6 dudes in the army, and they all, beat the shit out of him. And he did an interview and he goes, well, at least it took 6 of them. What am I going to do? Hide from it? Screw that.
Yeah. I don't know. He's got some of the most famous promos, right? Anything that he did with DX, with Triple H,
Yeah.
still to this day, you can show, and it's just like, hell yeah. Like anti-establishment, like, fuck the man. But then also throwing his partner through a window. Obviously, we go back to Bret Hart and talk about the screw job. Like, I don't know how much of that was actually his fault, but
If you want to make a grown man cry, show him the video of him retiring Ric Flair.
yeah.
I mean, come on.
I'm sorry, I love you is one of the easiest things to read on somebody's lips when it's
Yep.
Shawn Michaels.
I mean, I was a WCW kid growing up, so the Goldberg hype was big and real for me. Being a little older and wiser, looking back with 2020 retrospective vision, yeah, it was rough. it was not.
And to
I
be
mean,
fair,
it worked for a business from a business decision standpoint for them.
For a
I
while.
mean, the
yeah.
Goldberg merch was hot, but
I
from a
don't
legacy
think that,
standpoint,
I don't think that that's Goldberg's fault, because he tried to be a professional, like play in the NFL, and that didn't
Football
work.
player? Has
Yeah.
he been dropped on your head tonight?
A little bit. That didn't work, so he transitioned into wrestling, and they shoved him into the spotlight without,
oh yeah,
proper
With
training
Yeah.
or anything like that. So that's as much of WCW's fault as anything else.
I mean, I think that, like, to be fair to Goldberg, because we are shitting on him a little bit, one of the coolest entrances of all
Oh,
time,
yeah.
right, is the shower of sprinklers.
Sparks.
Sparks. Thank you. I'm like, what are they called? And just the music, like the following him from his dressing room all the way out, like it was always, the dude was a monster, and really it would have been cool if he knew how to wrestle.
Yeah.
I saw a video, it was either today or yesterday, of the William Regal versus Goldberg match.
Oh, I saw that too.
Yeah. And it's just, man, William Regal being a technical wrestler, like, and just great at putting people over and helping to, he struggled in carrying Goldberg and just some of the shit that he was doing. So yeah, want to do official votes. Shawn Michaels.
Shawn Michaels.
Shawn Michaels.
All right. Gets us into our last matchup, and I do think this one's more difficult.
Ooh, I don't even like this one.
Yeah. What is it?
Sting versus Mick Foley.
It's Sting. So I was always more of a WWE or WWF guy than I was a WCW guy, until they merged, and then I was on the WCW side. But Sting was the one thing, like the one big character that I always loved. Like just you know what it was? And this might surprise nobody. It was the Crow Sting. Like that is the best Sting. The one
for sure.
hanging out in the rafters, baseball bats, like taking vengeance on people. Sting he's who I still look up to in a lot of ways.
But he's another one of those ones where he has a longevity to his career, where a generation before us would probably think of him as the surfer Sting, bright face paint, 1980s style.
And I guess I am the generation before you guys, because I was a little Stinger growing up, and he used to have huge rivalries with Ric Flair and the Four Horsemen as that like bleach blonde and the the makeup. But then when he came back as like the Crow Sting, made me love him even more. But he is going up against somebody who arguably has the most iconic, like the
Spot.
most iconic match ever.
Yeah.
In Mick Foley versus The Undertaker.
He helped to create what Hell in a Cell is today.
Yeah.
Revolutionized it multiple times. Like, not only did he really start the Hell in a Cell, he then, man, his match with Triple H in Hell in a Cell, his match again with The Undertaker, where he gets chokeslammed through the top of the cage. Like, just, if you don't know anything about Mick Foley and you YouTube him, the first thing you're going to see is The Undertaker throwing him off head first of a 20-foot cage through an announce table, where the ring announcer then goes, "I think he's dead."
Yeah.
Like, literally terrified that Mick Foley was dead. No one, and I feel like I'm not going too far out on a limb to say this, nobody takes a bump like Mick Foley.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, that man would take punishment night after night. He had tremendous rivalries. Like, his rivalries were emotional. They were real. Like, his rivalry with The Undertaker, it was long. His rivalry with Triple H got like really heated, right? He's the only person to have come out in a Royal Rumble as 3 different characters.
But can we take a minute to talk about like Mick Foley has some of the most iconic moments, but my God, dude, Cactus Jack
Fuck
was
off. Cactus
so
Jack,
stupid.
you're wrong. Cactus
You're
Jack
wrong.
was the second best Mick Foley persona
Oh,
behind
no,
only his
you're
own.
wrong.
Behind
No.
only when he embraced all 3 of them, in my opinion. Mankind, Cactus Jack they're amazing.
No.
Dude Love was a little weird.
Dude Love and the fucking sock, dude. Come on.
The Rock and Sock connection, bro. Like, his rivalry with The Rock that turned into tag team champions. Like, I'm sorry, but like, I loved Mick Foley, honestly, and this is a real true story. Mick Foley is what got me into professional wrestling. In 1997 or 1998, the Super Bowl, where the Denver Broncos were playing and won either their first or second championship, I can't remember which one it was, they did a halftime WWE match, and it was a Mick Foley match. And it got me so invested in him as a character and him as a, like, this is just some dude getting his ass kicked, like, all over the stadium.
Wasn't that the empty arena match?
It was.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
was. Man, I loved Mick Foley, and still to this day, like, I think that when he makes appearances as just himself to like hype people up or to be a guest, GM or whatever, he's fun to watch.
I don't know, man, but we talked about iconic entrances. I feel like Sting has that too. He's had more than one, honestly. I mean, you think about him coming down from the rafters, which he obviously stopped after the Owen Hart incident, but
yeah,
I mean, even then he stopped for a long, long time. I think he's done it once or twice since.
Yeah.
That longevity in career being, I mean, he was on the very first and then the very last WCW Nitro. I mean, he saw the beginning and to end of that. He was the face of that company and then did not transition to WWE like most of other people. Then he went to smaller company, TNA. He helped get talent up there. He changed his character in that space a couple different times as well. But still knew where his bread and butter was, came back into WWE went through the legendary run as, the Sting that we knew, the black and white, then, a run in AEW even,
and a pretty damn good run.
Like, absolutely. Like I know they did some pre-recorded cinematic matches, which gave them some more leeway to look at the stunts that they were performing. But like still entertaining a story, and then did real matches too, not just the predetermined or pre-recorded ones.
But it also made sense. Like, it made sense for his character to pass on his legacy, to like care
Yep.
for a kid that seemed like the outcast, right? Like, it logistically, it was really good creative for him still.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, again, the tie-in with the NWO, the Wolf Pack, him being that like stalwart champion of the people against the NWO, like I don't know that the NWO would have been what it was without Sting to counter it, you
to
know.
bounce off of. Yeah.
But I'll go back to it, man. Mick Foley was the hardcore, like now I'm not saying that he was the only one or even the first one, right? But Mick Foley kind of normalized bloody matches in WWF. The thumbtacks in the ring, the burning 2x4 with barbed wire around the end, like some of the crazy shit that is like, I don't know. I guess I just and maybe it's just me, but a lot of my youth is growing up watching Mick Foley do crazy shit.
But is a lot of that cheap excitement compared to the story that Sting can tell?
Sure, to a point, but I think that there's something to be said about Mick Foley's story as well, right? When he wrote his book and when, he was kind of like coming back and like trying to get back into wrestling, and his run to winning the WWF championship for the first time was one of the more, I don't know, like talking about underdog of
It was
underdogs.
Daniel Bryan before Daniel
It
Bryan.
was, yeah. And people got behind that. And I think people really liked seeing somebody who wasn't the beefcake, full, like protein powder, working out 13 times a day.
I think you mean to say steroids. At that time of
I was
the
trying
company,
not to
it was
say that.
steroids.
Yeah. Like he was just an everyman. Like he was just a guy. And I loved Mr. Sacco. I don't care what you say.
It's so gross.
It was absolutely disgusting, but it
perfect.
worked.
It was perfect.
But it's even more gross if you've ever heard like Triple H talking about traveling with Mick Foley and how he would just either throw clothes in a trash bag or just carry his clothes with him. And it like they would get through wrestling a match, they would go back to the locker room, and Mick Foley would like peel off his sweaty sweatpants, take a shower, dry off with the towel or the shirt that he just took off from the match, and then put the same underwear and sweatpants back on. Like,
all right, we're getting too in the weeds now. We're talking about their packing habits, and we're in round one. That's disgusting. But anyway,
yes,
I think we need a vote.
Okay.
This one's tough.
I'll start with the man who got me into wrestling. I don't think that he's going to win, but I think Mick Foley as a champion is a really, really fun story. And something that a lot of people got behind. I'm gonna throw my vote to Mick Foley with no shade intended to Sting. I still love Sting, but Mick Foley's that was my entrance.
Dan, what do you think?
I think this is tough. I think Mick Foley has more iconic moments in wrestling, but it's really just those matches with The Undertaker. And I think that is amazing, and that's going to outlive like all of us, those moments. But I think Sting's legacy and longevity and the fact that he was relevant so long, like he was wrestling back in the days of Ric Flair and the Four Horsemen, then reinventing his character and coming back as like the Gothic Sting, and like, the lights would go down, it would be completely black, and then he would just appear in the ring. Like, some really great matches, some really great storytelling, and probably my favorite wrestler of all time, going back to when I was a little Stinger. I'm voting for Sting.
I hear you. I respect you. But fuck you. Because I don't know that anybody has left literally as many body parts in the ring as Mick Foley.
I mean, that's true.
I'm not going to lie. This is tough. I feel like this is a damn near coin flip. Matt, I think you made a good point in your very final statement that as a champion, I feel like Mick Foley, like his championships were more meaningful. I can't pinpoint a time. Obviously, I know Sting was a champion, but I can't pinpoint a time where it mattered if he was or not. His storylines didn't revolve around that. His storylines were more in the entertainment side than the sports side, right? Mick Foley's championships, though, they had some importance to them. And I've always been a sucker for the hardcore, like the hardcore championship and the 24/7. Like he was big. He was a part of that in the first iteration.
If it helps at all or hinders, the only reason the hardcore championship was introduced was to keep Mick Foley like satisfied.
I just I'm having to try and like try to remove myself from it because like both. I don't know. I feel like I recognize the importance and the legacy of Mick Foley as he is, but Sting just I don't know if my feelings towards Sting are more nostalgic or if they're true.
They're true.
I think I'm trying to think about like in terms of the Hall of Fame. They're both Hall of Famers. Which one's inclusion in the Hall of Fame was more meaningful? And I think when I consider it that way, man, that doesn't even make it. Like I started to say Mick Foley, but that's because he was a company guy, but so was Sting, just for the other company, you know? Man, my gut is torn here.
Your gut is torn.
Yeah, wide open and spilling out on the floor.
Is it in three pieces potentially? One that loves, one that shoots, and one that hides?
If I project myself, my spiritual and spirit and my mentality 20 years in the future, I think that ultimately Sting has a greater chance of being recognized and having a legacy that goes that far. It's not to say Mick Foley won't, but I feel like Sting being such a solid face of WCW puts him over the top a little bit. I think because Mick Foley had Steve Austin and The Rock and Triple H and Undertaker to contend with, nobody was on the same level as Sting and WCW there were some others, DDP and maybe just him, the NWO, but like Sting was and he was the one that they all leaned. I think it has to be Sting. Just, man, that one's tough. That's the toughest one. I'm not even sure I'm convinced, but it's what my vote's going to be because I've been bloviating too long.
So
I'm happy with the vote.
Sting moves on. I was going to say, look at the shit-eating grin you put on Dan's face.
Yeah, I know. That was part of the reason why I hated saying it too.
Scorpion leg lock, baby.
But I mean, I think it's important for us to say of these two divisions in our bracket, I don't think there's anything lost for any of the losers in this first round. I think that most of them are just up against fucking juggernauts.
Yeah.
Sting just happened to be the one that, like, it was a closer matchup. I would have loved to see Sting and Mick Foley go at it in a Hell in a Cell. You know?
Yeah, the number of missed opportunities we had with Sting never going. I mean, can you imagine
Sting versus DX?
The storyline that Sting and Undertaker could have had against each other.
Oh,
I mean, come on, talk
good.
about a dream.
Yeah, cinematic matches would have become a lot bigger at a much earlier time.
All right. Anyway, up next week, we move into round 2. We are down to, what is it? What are we calling this?
The egotistical. Oh no, we're at 16.
Nope, we still have 16.
The
sweet.
There we go. The sweet 16.
Yeah, Yeah, there you go. The Too Sweet. Anyway, the Too Sweet 16 coming up next week. Are we going to keep it going? We'll start on the bottom.
Sure.
Okay, we'll just agree to that now and see if we remember next time we record. So yeah, we got some interesting matchups. Anyway, look forward to that. Thank you everyone for listening, for liking, for subscribing, for following, for tickling, for sharing, for however you're interacting with the podcast. We appreciate it. Please continue to do that. It's kind of like the only real means of growth we have. If we're being honest, we need you. Thank you for Aaron O'Donnell for Aaron O'Donnell music on YouTube for the song you hear at the beginning and end of every episode. Thanks to Matt for editing. Thanks to Dan for jumping in after he was reminded we were supposed to record right now.
Yep.
Thanks to me for stumbling over pretty much every sentence I've said through this closing. I almost got through that last one, and then I started to say, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Couldn't do it. Is that everything?
That's it.
Yeah.
Just close it out, bro.
I have been a rear naked chokehold, Scott.
By God, he's still breathing. I'm Matt.
And I'm still the square circle, Dan.
He still almost got that right.
He almost got it.
Bye-bye.